Okay, in this video we are going through numbers 13 through number 19 in your test review. Rectangle WXYZ has dimensions of 2 by 5. The dimensions are increased by a scale factor of 2. Find the area of the new rectangle. Okay, so I know my scale factor is 2, meaning my dimensions are going to completely be changed by 2. So let's first remember that this is a rectangle, so the other two sides of my rectangle are also 5 and 2. If my area, I want to find the area of the new rectangle. So my original area is 10, so I know my area needs to be bigger than 10. So let's go ahead and get rid of C. Multiplying by a scale factor of 2 means that my new rectangle is going to have a size of 4. And it's going to have a size of 10. So here we did 5 times 2, or base times height, to find the area. Here we're going to do 10 times 4, or 4 times 10. Base times height to find the area. So my area here is 40. So A is my answer, but let's look at what it multiplied by. So remember my scale factor is 2, but my area didn't multiply by 2, so be careful about that because a lot of people want to make that mistake. They want to take 10, they want to multiply by 2 and get 20, which luckily that's not an answer choice. But really remember my scale factor for area, we always have to square it. Only for area, so that would give me 4. So 10 times 4 is what gave me 40. Okay, looking at number 14. How are the area and perimeter affected when the side dimensions are changed by a factor of 5? Okay, so this is what we just talked about. My scale factor is 5. My area is not going to multiply by 5, though. Let's look at something for example. Say I have a square and it's a 1 by 1 square. 1 times 1 is 1, so my area is 1. But then I multiply my square by a scale factor of 5. So now I have a square that's 5 by 5. Well, my area did not multiply by 5 because now my area is 25. So what times 1 gives me 25? Well, 25. So my scale factor for area is 25. It multiplied by 25, or 5 squared. Okay, so that's for area. So we'll look at our perimeter in a second, but let's see. The area increased by a scale factor of 25. The perimeter and area increased by a factor of 25. So it's either got to be C or D. So let's look at our perimeter. Now, perimeter means all the lengths of my sides. So the entire, all the outside of my shape. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 4. Here, it's 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, so 20. So how much bigger did my perimeter get? 4 to 20. Well, that just multiplied by 5. So it increased by a factor of 5. So D is my answer. The perimeter is increased by a factor of 5, and the area is increased by a factor of 25. Number 15. The perimeters of two similar rectangles are given below. What is the scale factor of the dimensions from rectangle A to rectangle B? So originally my perimeter is was 55, and now it's 22. So 55 times a number is giving me 22. Let's call that number a letter like X. So 55X gives me 22. To figure out what I'm multiplying by, I'm going to work backwards and I'm going to divide. So if I divide 22 over 55 in my calculator, it's going to reduce it for me. And it's going to reduce it to 2/5. Now don't put your decimal when you do that if you want it as a fraction. Just leave the decimal off and it'll give me the fraction of 2/5. I could also test these out. In my calculator, I could do 55 times 2/5. and it should give you 22. No other number times 5 would be way too big. Times 2 would be too big. And 5 halves is actually 2.5, so that would also be too big. Only 55 times 2/5 gets me 22. Number 16. A 20-foot ladder is leaned against a wall. If the base of the ladder is 8 feet from the wall, how high up the wall will the ladder reach? Okay, so I have 8, I have 20, and I'm looking for this. So this is a leg of my right triangle. So I want to solve for a leg. So I know a squared plus b squared equals c squared, my Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem helps me find the missing length of a triangle. So I'm going to plug in what I know, 8 squared plus b squared equals 20 squared. I know 20 squared is 400. And I know 8 squared is 64. And to solve for this b squared, the square on that leg, I'm going to subtract. Okay, so I might need to go to my calculator. That's fine. So I'm going to type in 400 minus 64. So b squared equals 336. Now this is b squared. I don't want to say it's 336 feet high. A 20-foot ladder could not reach 336 feet in the air. So I need to find the square root of 336. Now remember, this is not dividing, it's finding the square root. So find your square root key in your calculator, and you should get around 18.3. And I'm just going to round it to 1 decimal out. So 18.3 feet. Number 17, Tyler has a rectangular garden measuring 12 meters by 20 meters that he wants to split diagonally from corner to corner using a fence. How long does this fence need to be? Round your answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. So when we draw a diagonal through the middle of our rectangle, we should see that we create a right triangle. So I'm just looking for the hypotenuse of my right triangle. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, my hypotenuse. So 20 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 400 plus 144 is c squared. This would be 544, be c squared. So the square of my hypotenuse is 544. To find just c, I'm going to find the square root of 544. Again, I'm going to want my calculator for that. So the square root of 544 is 23.3. Number 18, find the straight line distance from the store to the school. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth of a mile. So I want a distance. So not slope, but a distance. And if I want a distance and it's a diagonal distance, then I'm going to be doing the Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to make my right triangle. I can see I have one leg. I'm going to count the distance between those for my legs. Count the distance of my legs as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the distance of this leg is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I know a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and now I can solve for the distance here. This would be my c. This would be my a, this would be my b. So 4 squared plus 6 squared will give me c squared. 16 plus 36. 16 plus 36 is 52. And that's my c squared. So I need to find the square root of 52, which will give me c. The square root of 52 is 7.2. Number 19, using the dimensions of the squares shown below, which set of squares will form a right triangle? Okay, so I know if it is a right triangle, then this will be true. We learned that the Pythagorean theorem only works for right triangles. And when there's a number on the outside here, I can probably assume it's the length of the square. So not the area of the square, but the length. But I can use the length of the square to find the area. So we know the two smaller squares should add to equal the larger square. So I know this is 400, 20 times 20, or 20 squared. I'm going to have to do 12.5 squared in my calculator, which is 156.25. And 17.5 squared is 306.25. And if I added these together, that would be too big. 306 plus 156 is more than 400, so A is not my answer. Continuing on B, this would be 36. 2.25 squared is, I'm sorry, 2.5 squared is 6.25. And then 6.5 squared is 42.25. So I want to know, does this plus this equal 42.25? 36 plus 6.25. I'm going to type that in my calculator, and it does give me 42.25, so this must be a right triangle. I could go on and check the other two, but I know I'm confident that I'm right here, so I'm going to stop there and answer B. Okay, so that's the end of our third video for reviewing for our final exam.